Holmes County, Ohio. Last July. The kind of day most gardens look defeated. This one looked like April. The man tending it was 74, same plot, 40 years, no fertilizer, no pesticides, no irrigation. I asked what he was doing that I wasn't. He picked up a handful of soil, dark, almost black, crumbled like chocolate cake. Everything starts here, he said. Most people never figure that out. That conversation ended 25 years of hitting the same ceiling. 3 years inside Amish communities across Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana showed me why. Families farming the same ground their great-grandparents broke without ever replacing it. Here are 17 secrets from that system. Everyone personally tested. Number 14 is the one that changed how I understood soil entirely. Stay with me for it. 20 years I left my beds bare between plantings and didn't understand what it was costing me. Every time you expose soil, between seasons, between rows, over winter, you're actively destroying it. Sun bakes the surface into a crust. Rain hammers it into a compacted layer. Wind pulls the moisture out. And without a living root system feeding the biology underneath, that invisible community starts to collapse. Every spring I was essentially restarting with dead ground. I thought I was managing a garden. I was managing a graveyard. The Amish never leave soil bare. Not for a week, not for a weekend if they can help it. The moment a crop comes out, something goes back. A cover crop, a thick layer of straw, a blanket of fallen leaves. The soil surface is never naked to the sky. This single habit is the foundation that makes everything else on this list possible. You can't build a living soil if you keep killing it between seasons. This fall, the moment you pull your last crop, cover the bed. Straw, leaves, a planted cover crop, anything. Just don't leave it bare. Covering the soil is only half of it, because what you put on top and how you put it there is where most gardeners make a quiet mistake that undermines everything they're trying to build. For most of my gardening life, I did what I was taught. Spread compost, fire up the tiller, mix it all in. Felt productive, felt thorough. It was destroying my soil every spring and I didn't know it. Here's what tilling actually does. It shreds the mycorrhizal fungal networks that carry nutrients to plant roots. It collapses the air channels earthworms spend all year constructing. It brings thousands of dormant weed seeds up to the surface where they sprout within days. That clean, fluffy tilled bed looks productive. Biologically, it's been set back an entire year. The Amish don't till. They spread compost and aged manure directly on the soil surface, 1 to 2 inches, twice a year, and let the system do the work. Rain pulls nutrients down. Earthworms drag organic matter into their burrows. Fungal networks grow up into the compost layer and root nutrients directly to plant roots. It's exactly how a forest floor works. Nobody tills the woods, and forest soil is some of the richest, most biologically active soil on the planet. I stopped tilling 4 years ago. By the second season, my soil structure was visibly different. By the third, I had earthworm populations I'd never seen in 25 years. They came back because I stopped destroying them every April. Put the tiller away. Feed from the top. Let the soil do what it was designed to do. Once you stop tilling, you need a different way to handle compaction. The Amish solved this over a century ago with one simple tool. I didn't believe in this tool until I used it. Now it's the first thing I reach for every spring. A broad fork is 2 handles, a crossbar, and a row of 12 to 14-inch steel tines, spaced across about 18 inches. You drive the tines into the soil with your body weight, rock the handles back, and lift. That's the whole tool. What makes it different from everything else is what it doesn't do. It doesn't flip the soil, it doesn't invert the layers, it opens channels, lets air and water in, breaks through surface compaction, without moving a single thing from where nature put it. The biological community on top stays on top. The first time I worked a bed with a broad fork instead of a tiller, I expected it to feel like a compromise. It felt like cheating. 10 minutes, a 4x8 bed, and the soil afterward had air in it, structure in it, without the week it usually takes for a tilled bed to settle. One pass every spring, tines every 6 to 8 inches, water stops pooling, roots go deeper. The earthworms move in and maintain those channels for you all season. No engine, no destroyed biology. 10 minutes. Loose soil is just the start. Here's what the Amish actually use to build the fertility that powers everything else. Most of us compost the way we mean to exercise. We have a pile. We add to it when we remember. We never quite have enough when we need it. I watched an Amish woman in Lancaster County manage her compost the way I manage my checking account, knowing exactly what was in it, exactly when it would be ready, and exactly where it was going next. 2 bins, always. One actively cooking, one finished and waiting. The moment the finished bin empties, the cooking bin has had time to mature and becomes the finished bin. A new one starts immediately. Nothing waits. Nothing runs out. Nothing leaves the property. Kitchen scraps, plant residue, spent crops, grass clippings, wood ash, animal manure. It all cycles back. In communities with horses and cows, that manure is composted through winter and applied every spring. The combination of plant matter and animal waste creates a microbial diversity that nothing in a bag can replicate. The key discipline most of us miss. The Amish treat their compost pile as seriously as they treat their garden. It gets attention. It gets turned. It gets managed. Because they understand that the compost pile is where next year's harvest is being built right now. Start treating yours like it matters. Because it does, more than almost anything else on this list. Once that fertility system is running, here's how the Amish make sure every bit of it goes exactly where it's needed. This one will save you more time and energy than almost any other change you can make. The Amish don't redesign their gardens every year. They establish permanent beds, 3 to 4 feet wide, narrow enough to reach the center from either side, and work those same beds in the same locations, season after season, decade after decade. The path is for walking. The bed is for growing. Those two things never cross. I have a bed I haven't stepped in for 6 years. Last fall I pushed my hand into it past the wrist. No resistance. Not because I did anything special to it. Because I stopped doing things to it. I stopped compacting it. I stopped tilling it. I just fed it from the top and got out of the way. That's a biological community developing its own identity, its own structure, its own earthworm population, its own fungal network. The bed gets easier to work every season, not harder. Establish your beds this fall. Mark them permanently. Never step in them again. Now that the physical structure is right, here's how the Amish decide what goes in those beds, because they almost never plant anything alone. A long row of one crop is an advertisement to every pest in your county. Most insects find their target plants by smell. A monoculture row of cabbage sends out a signal strong enough that every cabbage moth in the neighborhood knows exactly where to land. The Amish figured this out generations ago, not from a textbook, but from watching what happened when they planted things together versus apart. Tomatoes with basil and borage. Basil confuses aphids and whiteflies. Borage deters hornworms and pulls in pollinators. Jacob told me his mother never planted a tomato without both of them at its feet. I asked why. He said he'd never seen her lose a tomato plant to hornworm, and he wasn't going to test whether it was the borage or just luck. Cabbages and brassicas with dill and nasturtiums. Dill attracts parasitic wasps that destroy cabbage worms. Nasturtiums pull aphids away from your main crop entirely. They'd rather be on the nasturtiums. Squash with corn and beans. The three sisters. I asked an older farmer in Holmes County why he still planted them together after all these years. He looked at me like I'd asked why he still ate breakfast. He said his grandfather's corn never failed in a drought year, and he couldn't say the same for his neighbors who separated them out. The corn shelters the beans. The beans feed the soil. The squash covers the ground and holds every drop of rain. Carrots with onions, and leeks in alternating rows. The sulfur compounds from the onion family mask. The carrot scent that draws rust flies. The fly can't find the carrots because the onions are in the way. Stop planting in monocultures. Start planting in communities. Pest pressure drops, moisture holds longer, and yields go up without buying a thing. Companion planting only works if the timing is right. And the next secret is one most American gardeners get completely backwards. For 15 years I planted by the calendar. Last frost date circled on the wall. The moment it passed, everything went in the ground. And every year, half my transplants just sat there, stunned, barely moving. Because the air was warm, but the soil was still cold. And a cold soil tomato plant doesn't grow. It survives. The Amish don't own a planting calendar. They own a soil thermometer. Tomatoes and peppers want 60 degrees Fahrenheit at 4 inches depth before you transplant. Beans and cucumbers want 65. Melons and squash want 70. Plant before those temperatures are met and you're not getting a head start. We never quite have enough when we need it. The infestation that had been spreading for a month stopped within the first week. Not because I found a better spray, because I stopped letting it compound. I've done the morning walk every season since. The pest problems I spent decades spraying at have dropped to almost nothing, and I now understand something the Amish have always known. Most garden disasters start as garden inconveniences that nobody addressed on Monday morning. 15 minutes? A bucket of soapy water, start at one end, work through every bed. It costs nothing but attention. The morning walk handles what's above the soil. Next, how to redirect pests before they ever reach your main crops. Instead of trying to keep pests away from your garden entirely, the Amish sometimes invite them in on purpose, just not where you care. It's called trap cropping. You plant something the pest prefers even more than your main crop on the edges of the garden, where it draws them away from the vegetables you actually care about. Nasturtiums are the classic Amish trap crop. Aphids are wildly attracted to them, far more than to your beans or peppers. Plant nasturtiums around the perimeter. The aphids cluster there and largely leave your main crops alone. Once they're loaded, pull them or let the beneficial insects from your habitat strip them clean. For flea beetles, a nightmare on eggplant and young brassicas. Plant a row of radishes 2 feet in front of your main planting. Flea beetles prefer radish leaves. They go there first. Sacrifice the tops and your eggplant stays clean. For squash, vine borers and cucumber beetles plant blue Hubbard squash at the far corners of the garden. They're magnets for those pests. You're not trying to save the blue Hubbard. You're using it as a decoy. No sprays, no labor. You plant it once and it works all season. The pests do exactly what nature designed them to do, just somewhere you don't mind. Here's how to turn dead ground, lawn, weedy patches, compacted areas into productive beds without a single pass of a tiller. If you've got a patch of lawn or a weedy section you've been meaning to convert for years, this is how you do it without ever touching a rototiller. The Amish call it layering. It works in a way tilling never could, because instead of trying to kill and bury what's there, you're using decomposition to turn it into an asset. Mow or cut whatever is growing in the area as short as possible. Don't remove it, just knock it flat. Then lay corrugated cardboard over the entire area, overlapping edges by at least 4 to 6 inches so no light sneaks through the seams. Wet it thoroughly. Then layer on top 2 to 3 inches of finished compost, followed by 4 to 6 inches of straw, shredded leaves, or aged wood chips. Water the whole stack again, walk away. Over the next 3 to 4 months, the cardboard smothers the grass and weeds underneath. Earthworms move in and start working the cardboard into the soil below. The compost and mulch layers decompose into a rich planting medium that's being improved from beneath at the same time. Set this up in fall. By spring, you can plant directly into it. I built 2 new beds this way 3 years ago. They're now some of the most productive ground I have. No tiller. Not once. Before we get to number 14, there's one more thing that has to be in place, or your harvest will feast in July and go quiet in September. You know the problem. You plant everything in spring. By July, you've got more zucchini than you know what to do with. By September, the garden is winding down and the fresh food is gone. The Amish don't have this problem. They never have. Their solution is succession planting, staggering the same crop every 2 to 3 weeks. So harvests come in continuously instead of all at once. A short row every few weeks from early spring through midsummer. When the first planting finishes, the second is coming in. When the second is done, the third is ready. You never have more than you can eat. You never go without. For the fall garden, which most of us completely ignore. The Amish plant a second succession of cool season crops in late July and August. Cabbage, spinach, kale, carrots, beets. These mature in the cooling temperatures of September and October. And they often taste better than their spring counterparts because cold temperatures convert starches into sugars. Your garden doesn't have to end in August. With succession planting, it runs until the ground freezes. Now, number 14. This is what I've been building toward since the opening. Pay close attention. I'm going to tell you about something I watched an Amish farmer do in Lancaster County that I didn't understand at the time. Early spring, he was preparing a bed that had been under a cover crop all winter. He cut the cover crop down, laid it on the surface, and then, before he did anything else, he walked to the oldest, most productive bed in his garden, dug up 3 or 4 large shovelfuls of soil, and carried them over to the new bed. He worked that soil into the top few inches, spread it around, patted it down. I asked what he was doing. He said his grandfather taught him, and his grandfather's grandfather taught him. You take soil from where things grow best and give it to where things need to grow. The ground learns from itself. I thought it was a nice tradition. I didn't think it was science. I was wrong. What Amish farmers have been doing for generations, without knowing the technical explanation, is biological inoculation. He was transferring a thriving community of beneficial microorganisms from a mature, healthy ecosystem into a new or recovering bed. Here's what's in that shovelful of old garden soil that makes it irreplaceable. Mycorrhizal fungi, the underground networks that connect plant roots to nutrients and water across distances roots could never reach alone. A single teaspoon of healthy garden soil contains miles of fungal threads. These networks take years to establish from scratch. When you transfer soil from a mature bed, you're transplanting an established network into a new location. Beneficial bacteria, specifically nitrogen-fixing and phosphorus-solubilizing bacteria that make nutrients available in forms roots can actually absorb. Present in numbers that dwarf anything you can buy in a bottle. Protozoa and nematodes, the predators that keep the bacterial and fungal populations in balance and release nutrients as they feed. This entire community, the invisible engine of plant growth, takes years to build in a new bed from scratch. But transfer 2 or 3 shovelfuls of mature, healthy soil, and you're seeding it with a living starter culture that begins working immediately. Modern soil scientists call this biological inoculation. The Amish called it common sense. They've been doing it for 300 years. Here's how to do it in your garden right now. Find your best performing bed, the one with the darkest soil, the most earthworms, the strongest yields. In early spring, take 3 to 4 large shovelfuls of soil from that bed and work them into any bed that's struggling. new beds, recovering beds, beds that have been tilled or compacted. If you don't have a mature bed yet, find a neighbor who does. A community garden, an old farm that's been producing without heavy chemical inputs. That soil is worth more than anything at the garden center. Do this once. Then maintain the bed with compost, cover crops, and chop and drop. Within 2 seasons, that bed will have developed its own biological identity, its own community tuned to your specific soil, your specific climate, your specific crops. And here's the part that still stays with me. Once established, that community is self-sustaining. It doesn't need inputs to maintain itself. It feeds itself, regulates itself, improves itself season after season. As long as you don't destroy it with tillage or chemicals. The farmer in Lancaster County was tending soil his grandfather had inoculated from his grandfather's beds. Generations of biological community passed down through the soil itself. Still working, still improving, still producing. That's not folklore. That's the most sophisticated soil management practice I've ever encountered. And it costs nothing but a shovel and the willingness to pay attention to where your best ground actually is. Most people who learn about soil biology start watering completely differently. What comes next is why. For most of my gardening life, I watered the way felt natural. A little every day. Keep everything moist. Keep the plants happy. I was training my plants to fail. Here's what shallow, frequent watering actually produces. Roots that stay near the surface because the surface is always wet. When a dry week comes, a vacation, a busy stretch, a drought, those surface roots have nowhere to go. The plant wilts fast and hard because it never built the deep root architecture to find its own water. The Amish water deeply and infrequently, a long, slow soak that pushes moisture down 8 to 10 inches. Then nothing until the top 2 inches are dry. The plant is never pampered. It is trained. When the surface dries, the roots follow the moisture downward. A plant that has been watered this way for a season has roots going down 12, 14, 16 inches. It can find water on its own. It can handle a dry week without wilting. It has been built through mild stress into something resilient. I watched a woman in Indiana go 10 days without touching her garden during a dry July spell. Her neighbors' gardens were struggling. Hers looked untouched by the heat. She told me she hadn't watered that bed in 11 days. I asked how. She said she'd been watering that way for 30 years and the soil knew what to do. The method: water slowly until you can push a finger 6 inches down and feel moisture at the bottom. Then walk away. Come back when the top 2 inches are dry. For most summer gardens in most climates, that is every 4 to 7 days, not every day. Less water, stronger plants, and a garden that can handle the weeks when you can't be there. Everything we've talked about so far builds something. The next secret is about making sure what you build doesn't stop with you. This is the secret that took me longest to understand, not because it's complicated, because the implications of it took time to settle. Every Amish family I spent time with saves seed, not from every crop, but from their best performers. The tomato that set fruit earliest, the bean that produced through the dry stretch in August, the squash that held off powdery mildew the longest. They save seed from those plants, and only those plants, year after year. What they are doing, without calling it this, is selection. They are slowly, deliberately breeding a variety tuned to their specific soil, their specific microclimate, their specific growing season. Over 10 or 20 years, that seed becomes something you cannot buy. It is adapted. It knows where it is. I asked an older farmer in Ohio how long his family had been saving the same bean seed. He thought about it. He said his grandmother brought it from Indiana. He figured it had been in the family 60 years. He said the bean never got the blight that hit his neighbor's rose. I asked if he'd ever tried a different variety, He said, why would he? The commercial seed industry sells you the same variety whether you garden in Vermont or Georgia. It was bred for shipping and shelf life, not for your ground. The Amish grow seed that was bred slowly, quietly, over generations, for exactly their conditions. You can start this season. Let your best performing plant of each variety go to full seed. Don't eat it. Don't compost it. Dry it. Label it. Plant it next year. Do that for 5 years, and you will have seed that no catalog can sell you. It costs nothing. It compounds every season, and in 30 years, you'll have something worth passing down. All 16 of these practices rest on one foundation. The last secret isn't a technique. It's what holds everything else together. Every Amish farmer I spent time with shares. One quality I've come to believe is the actual foundation of everything they do. They don't manage their garden reactively. They manage it as a system, built deliberately over time, with the understanding that what they do this season is an investment in the next one. They don't expect results this week. They don't abandon a practice because it didn't produce a miracle in the first year. They plant in spring knowing they'll harvest in fall. They build soil in fall knowing it will be better in spring. They inoculate a new bed knowing it will reach its full potential in 3 or 4 seasons. Most of the secrets in this video take time to show their full effect. The soil biology takes a season to establish. The companion plantings take a year to find their balance. The cover crops take 2 or 3 cycles to fully transform a tired bed. If you're managing reactively, always chasing the current problem, you'll interfere with the system before it can mature. Go slow. Pay attention. Trust the ground. That's how the man in Holmes County ended up with soil that looked like chocolate cake after 40 years on the same plot. Not luck, not talent. A system practiced with discipline over time by a man who understood that the best gardening you do today will not show its full result until next year or the year after that. I left his garden that July afternoon with a handful of his soil in my pocket. I didn't ask permission. He saw me do it, and he didn't say a word. I think he understood. Everything starts here. 300 years. That's how long these 17 practices have been tested on American soil, in American weather, by American families who needed them to work. They work. Don't try to do all 17 at once. Pick 2 or 3 that fit where you are right now. Struggling soil? Start with inoculation and cover crops. Pest problems? Start with companion planting and the morning walk. Tired of working harder for the same results? Put the tiller away and start feeding from the top down. Start there, let it work. Then add another. That's how the Amish built gardens that are still producing on the same ground after 300 years. Small improvements, compounding over time, until the whole system runs itself. Drop a comment below and tell me which secret you're starting with, or describe your biggest problem right now. I read everyone. After 30 years, I've dealt with most of them, and I'll tell you exactly what worked. The man in Holmes County didn't learn any of this from a book or a video. He learned it from 40 years of paying attention to the same piece of ground. You have your own ground. Start paying attention to it. Go put something in the soil this weekend. That's where it starts.